All right, so things are getting along pretty good. In a few seconds, we will have our next speaker. I'll just start by presenting the second session, the structure and the theme. So our next session, the second one out of four, will deal primarily with ethics, communities, and design. We will start with Professor Gershenzweig, which will join us very, very shortly. Here he is, Ariel. Hi. So we'll start with Ariel's presentation on design and ethics. And then again, we will hear three of our graduates, Plia Mendel, Adar Sasson, and Or Bengerovich. So without further ado, I'll present our second speaker, Professor Ariel Gershenzweig. And Professor Ariel is currently the director of the MA degree in Design and Management of User Experience and Digital Services at the University of Elisava in Barcelona, Spain. Ariel is a former, I don't know if you can say that, the former like a felony or something, but he was and perhaps still is a designer, UX designer. And he's currently researching design theory, philosophy, and ethics. And his latest publications deal with AI and the ethics of AI and design. His last book was titled The Goods of Design, and again, a very interesting book with an innovative approach towards design. And again, Ariel is a very dear friend and colleague and another valued member of the Social Design Network. So Ariel, floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. Boker Tov. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here today. And well, just connecting with what Jonathan was saying, former sounds like a felony, like a criminal, but indeed, if Papanek is right and design is a bit of a crime, then I'm a former criminal. I recovered. But yeah, I will share my screen and I'll start with my talk. All right. Okay. I will talk about briefly about how design influences us and from an ethical perspective.
Ariel, I think a presentation froze. It's not on full screen, so just
it's not on full screen.
No.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry about that.
I think it's because your computer is in Spanish, so perhaps.
Yeah, no, I'm using somebody else's computer today because mine is. I'm so sorry about this.
It's fine.
I have probably the mirroring on. I'm sorry. I'll be right back in 1 minute. I'm so sorry about this.
Sure, no worries. No worries. It's okay. Okay, I'm just gonna say that if you guys are not familiar with Ariel's kind of position towards design, it's a bit different in its focus than the first speaker, Professor Shilpa, that we heard. Ariel is a practitioner of design. He worked many years in various design brands and marketing venues, specifically in UX and graphic design. I strongly recommend that you check out Ariel's publications because he started with classic philosophy and ethics. And in the last year, he started publishing work on various dangers and potential dangers of AI and artificial intelligence in general. I have been working with Ariel in the last year and a half, and again, I think if you just follow up his work, there's a lot of very interesting things happening there. The combination between ethics and design. So hopefully, Ariel will resolve his issue with the Wi-Fi there. I know he went on holiday. He was a bit sick, so we can just forgive him this this short delay. And I assure you, it will be worth your while when he comes back. So just bear with us a few seconds, and he will come back. Again, I'm just mentioning for the, I don't know, 100th time, if you want to shift the translation between Hebrew and English, just click the button at the bottom of your screen. You can either hear the audio in English or the original one in Hebrew. Unfortunately, these are the only languages we offer today. But again, just click the button if you need to. Okay, so again, there's some difficulty in communication. We'll just start with the graduate presentations and go back to Ariel when he resolves these issues. So I'm going to shift a bit the schedule, and we'll start with Plia. Yeah, you can start your presentation.
Hi. Hello, my name is Plia. I'm going to present my project that is based on raising early awareness of breast cancer among ultra-Orthodox women. I will show you a quote of Gilia, one of 9, which is this quote from Gilia was, I think, a good beginning, a good introduction. The disease in the Jewish ultra-Orthodox society has no name. It usually is called at all, if at anything, the women's disease, and usually is not called anything as if it doesn't exist. And there are no repercussions or dealing with the social aspects of this disease. In order to understand the numbers, this is just a few statistics from 5,539 women who get breast cancer per year over the overall population in Israel. 70% die of those who die are ultra-Orthodox women, are Haredi women. This requires an understanding of what exactly are the issues that this community, that ultra-Orthodox women have to deal with, and how it can be maybe addressed. Now, before I sort of dive into the study, it's important to note what really this self-exam at home kit includes. It's usually advised to check yourself a week after your period. There's, of course, a visual check, and this can save your life. Early detection prevents 90% of death from breast cancer. And that's my starting point. I have partners that have helped me that I want to mention. There's a PhD student, Chava Even Israel, who also deals with early breast cancer detection. She herself is an ultra-Orthodox woman. Dr. Tal Hadar, who's another expert on the field, and other women, a psychologist among them. In order to understand where I even understand this, first of all, I had to understand what are the obstacles, what are the barriers that stop ultra-Orthodox women from getting tested. First of all, this is a real important religious obstacles, cultural ones, social ones, the various definitions of obstacles and where they come from. After understanding those, I wanted to map some of the daily, the rituals of ultra-Orthodox women. Women of this community usually marry about at the age of 20, and there are 3 rituals: the mikveh, the ritual bathing. A week after your period, a woman begins going to a sort of a public bath, a mikveh, in order to do the sort of ceremonial bathing. There's also a second element is underwear store. Because when an ultra-Orthodox woman goes to buy underwear, bras and panties and so forth, she meets her body, she encounters her body as it is. And the third element was a wig store, because ultra-Orthodox women cover their hair, so they wear wigs, and they have to go. It's a bit like going to the hairdresser every few months. You go to the wig store and you get your wig maintained, and it's also kind of a social event because you meet other women there doing the same thing. Now, after mapping these basic sort of religious rituals that are part of these women's lives, I wanted to see the role of women in these areas, in these environments. These women that I contacted, that the Pe'anit, a woman who does the wig maker for women, the Balanit, who is the ritual ceremonial instructor in the mikveh, in the bathing, And this third, of course, is the woman who works in the underwear store. We had to first court these women to have to establish trust with these women, so that these women who play vital roles in these environments talk to us. After we established trust and conducting many hours of observations in these places, I started working. First, I put up posters, and I asked women to notify me how, you know, the women who work in these stores tell us how the women who come to shop in those stores react to my posters. What do they feel, or do they say anything? And then I created a concept of raising awareness and activism for early detection of breast cancer among ultra-Orthodox women, meaning an issue of cultural accessibility in a closed community. The system that I created, or it's divided in two. First of all, two elements that are interrelated. One is a board for checkups and tracking of early detection from a young age, and the second is a brochure with information. Now, I wanted these two elements, the checklist and the brochure, not only to raise awareness of early detection of breast cancer, but also raise a level of activism, of proactivism, of taking action, meaning it's not just a poster, but real information that through the board and through the checklist, in order to show see how do we in this ultra-Orthodox community, how can we even design for this community? How does design look in a very religious community? And there's an internal language, a jargon, both verbal and iconographic in terms of its shapes. So even when the posters are for women, you see only a picture of a man. So there's an internal messaging here of this community. And insights from the research that helped me begin my actual design is that these posters and this information will be in places where women go, only women can go. So there's no excuse now for it being in public, why women can't check because there's no time. No, this is in a place where you could check yourself and do a quick breast exam while, I don't know, trying on a piece of item of clothing in a store. It has to be modest, of course, according to the customs. And it also has to be very clear and very direct, meaning there are many projects that required of women to go get checked, to check themselves early. But none of those were adapted to the language of ultra-Orthodox women. It didn't speak to them in their language. And therefore, it wasn't accessible. In the mikveh, in the public bath, we made different changes. For example, I didn't mention by the mikveh, the bath, is a place in which a woman is alone. She bathes alone in a room. There's only the balanit that helps her and oversees the ritual and does everything according to religious law. But this is a place where a woman is not with her husband or her kids. She's not with anybody. She's alone in a bathroom, basically. And it's a place that I thought would be ideal, in which a woman she looks at her body, she's naked, she can check in that moment whether she can check her breasts to see if there are any changes that should be further reviewed. Then I did an actual user test. I told the balanit who works in the mikveh, in the bath, I gave her instructions. She is the one who gave instructions to the bathing women who came in. The data was actually quite thrilling from the mikveh, and it brought about more developments. You can see that over 15 women that were in the room, 12 answered the questionnaire. I assumed that there were only 3 questions in this questionnaire. It was very simple. 8 of the women said that they understood why they have to notice the models that I provided. 10 answered that they understood that they were being invited to check themselves, and 12 answered that the models raised their awareness. And for me, that is the most important thing, to raise women's awareness of early detection. So this is my brochure. It's an information pamphlet. It's small. It's a 12 by 13 centimeter pamphlet. It's very small. It's portable. A woman who comes to these environments, which is the bath or, you know, an underwear store or a wig store, she can see these little sort of pamphlets or brochures. And here in the design as well of these brochures, you can see, and the color choice was sort of medical, but also feminine. And the texture, meaning the design that was created, is sort of an X-ray of a breast. So the design decisions here were critical. It has to be adapted to the people you're serving. This was a field-based sort of design, and I wanted it to go back to the field and be usable then. So I wanted to listen to the women who could possibly see these items to make it relevant to them. The font, the coloration, the font is in a Jewish traditional iconographic sort of font. It's a sort of balance between modernity and tradition. The materials I used, and I'll show you in one of the boards, are from silicon, meaning the model is made of silicon. That's for the mikveh, because the woman is alone, she's in a bathroom, it's a it's a moist room, it's a wet room, it's a room in which a woman bathes, so you wanted something that's water resistant. And this is just a couple of images. This is Chedvi, one of the women who partnered with me. She's reading the brochure, and this is how the alon it seems in her environment. She wanted to, you can see it's also hung in a little case that is sort of half seen, half unseen, because throughout creating this visual language, I dealt with this, how do I make it visible, non-visible? How do I make it modest, but also prominent? Something that you look at, it draws your eye, but not in a way that's offensive. So this is in the underwear store, and I think the poster is still, it was left there for the entire project. That was very, very nice. Now you can also hang this on clothes hangers. You can clothe it in. And this is in the mikveh. This is the board that I designed for the mikveh, for the bath. It's about maybe 42 centimeters in width, relatively large versus the brochure. And you can see the various models through which you can see the changes in a breast that could potentially alert you to some kind of problem. 4 small changes that you need to notice and that a woman must look at and examine. And she knows that if any one of these things or parameters change, she has to then maybe go to a doctor and get checked out. So the shape as well, you can see is sort of amorphic. It's a bit vague. I'm going to show you a clip. For you, my Moishi, I bring this tie that used to belong to my father, so that you have it for your bar mitzvah. It seems to me that I'm not going to be here, but it's good that you have it. And for you, my Racheli, there is the recipe for the cheesecake that you love. It's written here with very exact sort of proportions, but I'm counting on your intuition that slowly, as you do this recipe, it's going to always come out the best. And for you, my sweet little Tzvikush, my sweet boy, I bring you the book that you love and that you love that I read to you and sing to you. And for you, my eldest, Chanush, Hannah, I put it in this box. And it's empty, this box that I give you, so that you remember and remember and remember to check yourself, to check, so that we don't find ourselves in this situation again in the future. You took care of everyone. Now it's time for you to take care of yourself. Look in this little booklet for the changes that you need to keep close an eye on to raise activism, to raise awareness, so that you don't suffer from breast cancer.
בסרטון שלי אני מראה החשיבות של האישה החרדית בבית, היא עסוקה בילדים, במשפחה, ויוצא שהיא שוכחת לדאוג לעצמה. זה גם חלק מהחסמים שמונעים מאישה ללכת להיבדק מהשלכות החברתיות.
These are some of the barriers that prevent a woman from going to check and get inspected. And after I visited, I concluded this project with the women I had worked with throughout the year. And I think the quotes speak for themselves. These are women who at the beginning were skeptical and they said, I'm not going to go and get tested. And you can see the quote, the last quote from Hani, who asked me, what, you came to take down the posters? All the women that come here respond to this, and you know, I've circulated all the booklets and I'm going to give them to my friends as well. I don't care if people think I'm crazy. So that's it. That's was the conclusion of the project that, as far as I was concerned, proved itself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much to Leah, our first graduate to present in this session. And we're moving to a totally different location with Hadar Sasson. Hadar Sasson, you can start your presentation.
Hi, Shalom.
Hi there.
Okay. Hi, I'm
Hadar, and I'm going to introduce MCare. Today, there's 99% prevention of mother-to-child HIV transmission. And despite this fact, every day, more than 400 HIV-positive newborns are born daily, most of them in the sub-Saharan section of Africa. There are barriers that make it difficult for pregnant women to go and get tested and receive treatments. And my project focuses on these barriers and suggests some responses to that. And this project is for pregnant women because this is a critical stage in which you can influence the health of the newborn. My advisors in this project are doctors, biotechnologists, and anthropologists of global medicine, and people from the community with which I had worked. I focused in Uganda as my case study. It's a country, a sub-Saharan country with relatively high percentages of HIV, almost 100,000 children. I focused on a rural area in Uganda called Puti. I connected with the community health care center. They sent me pictures of the place and data about their HIV patients. We're talking about 18 women, 11 men, and 4 individuals who don't receive any kind of treatment. The barriers that they face are both geographic and economic that lead to lack of access to major hospitals and labs. And there's also a cultural barrier that is manifest in stigma and discrimination and lack of autonomy for women. These stigmas take place also within the family unit, inside the relationship. And in many cases, this becomes a barrier for the woman for keeping that baby that she has with her partner. Main insights from my research is CD4 and viral load. These are the most important tests for diagnosing and monitoring HIV. Viral load, the PCR test, is not accessible for everyone in these countries. It can only be conducted in large laboratories, and the technological response is not enough to drive change. You also need a community solution, a change in the mindset. I understood that I can bring the most advanced technology in the world, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will use it. The concept I suggest is a system that helps community health workers to monitor and treat pregnant women living with HIV in rural Uganda in order to prevent the transmission of the virus to the fetus. System parts, they are made up of a campaign. The purpose of the campaign is to promote community testing, blood collector and analyzer that conduct the tests in the community, and an app that decodes the test and operates the telemedicine system. The purpose of the campaign is to increase awareness to prevention and treatment, to support the women and mainly their partners, and to encourage community testing. All this will be achieved by transferring the health messages through the agricultural narrative. These are people that are farmers from a young age, so this is an area that they're familiar with, that they know, and you can draw parallels between their daily efforts and attempts to have good crops, good yields, to compare between that and raising a healthy child. And it's close to the men as well, agriculture. It can motivate them to action. All of this is led by the community health worker who's chosen by the community. She's not a nurse, she's not a doctor, but she does receive training and technical and social training in medical and social care for HIV carriers. As part of the campaign, we will have a group instruction session for couples. They'll get healthcare training as well as agricultural consulting that will include seed distribution. The seeds have a symbolic value, but also a basic survival one. And the thing is that in this approach, the virus doesn't become the main thing, the major issue. They are receiving additional tools that can help them further develop in the field of agriculture. Text messages, leaflets, posters that are handed. This is a poster that was created in collaboration with the people from the community that call women to come and get tested. We worked a lot on how to represent the Ugandan woman, her posture, the way she stands, conveying the message in a clear way, also the colors and the language. It had evolved, and we changed it according to their feedback until we reached this final result. Now, the second part of the system, that's the blood collector and analyzer. The products in the market today definitely increased the range of testing, but still they haven't managed to reach everywhere. There are still regions that remain without response because it's still relatively expensive and complicated to operate. What I wanted is to come up with a product that can be accessible, not expensive, easy to operate, so you don't need a physician or a nurse. It needs to be portable so that you can take it into the people's homes if necessary. And it should be discreet and connected to a remote doctor. These are the blood collector and the analyzer, and they're based on an evolving field that's called lab on a chip. It's a microfluid system, and the technology is called LAMP. The user scenario starts with a finger prick, 2 drops of blood are passed to the collector, then you press and you put the collector into the analyzer, and it's operated with the app for a period of 30 minutes. And at the end of the process, the collector is thrown into a biological hazard bin. This scenario was tested with doctors as well as people without any experience in medicine, just like that community health worker who is supposed to use this product. And now I'll show you a short video that will demonstrate the user scenario.
Transfer 2 drops of blood to the blood collection device. Securing the capillary tube. Push the microfluidic chip to pump the blood using a vacuum. Insert the blood collection device into the analyzer. Every 30 seconds the camera takes a picture. An algorithm analyzes the color change in the chip cells. The decoding process takes 30 minutes. At the end of the process, a summary of the quantity of viral load and CD4, sent to the M-Care hotline for a decision on treatment.
The third part of the system is the app, which actually operates the analyzer, collects the data regarding viral load and CD4, and along with the social questioning about adhering to treatment, it's all sent to a remote doctor, and then we get back feedback about the optimal course of treatment. The design values throughout this project were protection, warmth, compassion, love, and universal maternal emotion. It was important for me to express in this product a very all-enveloping and containing feeling. I wanted to liken the connection between the two products to the connection to the relationship between mother and child. I wanted to make sure that it would be accessible to people without any medical experience. Here, the product is designated for Africa, but I wanted the design of the product to tell a universal story about the emotion and bond between mother and child so that it can actually function anywhere in the world.
Today, there is 99% effective treatment to prevent the transmission of HIV from mother to child. Despite this, 400 babies are born with HIV every day. Many barriers stand in her way. She needs courage to keep the baby healthy. She needs help to keep moving forward. M-Care aims to achieve an HIV-free generation. The program aims to reach all pregnant women in order to perform a life-saving HIV test. Accordingly, the optimal treatment can be offered to prevent the transmission of the virus from mother to child. M-Care analyzes CD4 and HIV viral load. The process is simple and easy to use. Operated by locally trained technicians. The test requires only 2 drops of blood. The process is sterile and safe to use. The analyzer is portable and easy to carry, powered by an efficient battery. The program provides rural telemedicine services. M-Care, for the protection of the next generation. And the next generation.
Thank you. Thank you, Hadar, for this presentation.
Graduate Ora Evangelovich, and then Ariel's presentation. Just please keep on the schedule because we're running a bit tight. Ora, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My project was using menstrual blood as an available source for stem cells. Stem cells are cells that their differentiation hasn't started yet, or it's very difficult to hear you. Maybe you can move to a place with better internet connection. which include leukemia and lymphoma, as treatment for medical conditions and diseases such as regeneration and personalized medicines for diseases such as Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Or we can't hear you, we can hardly see you. Can you maybe switch to a different internet connection or move somewhere? I'll try. Are you still with us, or can you hear us? Yes, I'm trying to connect to a different internet network. Sorry about that.
Okay, so again, we'll just start with the next presentation, and hopefully we'll get Laura's presentation afterwards. So,
is it okay now? Can you hear me now? Is it okay now? Let's start and see, okay? Okay, sure. So should I start from the beginning? Yes, yes. But try and stick to the schedule, okay? Sure. Sorry, still her internet connection isn't that good. Or, sorry, the connection is even worse than it was before. Maybe you'd like to check things and we can continue with somebody else for now. Yes, that would be best.
And hopefully Laura will find some solutions.
So Shana, thank you very, very much. Our final graduate of today will be Or Weingrowitz. Or I hope that you've managed to fix up all of the communication problems. Yes. And we'd really be happy to see your presentation. So please take the floor. And there you go.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. My project was about using menstrual blood as a source for stem cells. Stem cells are cells that are in our bodies. Their purpose hasn't been decided yet, and they can be differentiated into different types of cells. And their two main features is their self-replication capacity and the ability to differentiate into different types of cells. Today, the main stem cells that are used are blood stem cells and are used for treatment of about 80 life-risking diseases, including leukemia and lymphoma. In addition, there's advanced research regarding additional types of stem cells in our body, that treatment of diverse conditions, and it can save lives and things such as personalized meds, or for different degenerative diseases such as Parkinson's, diabetes, Alzheimer's. In order to use stem cells, we need full compatibility between the donor to the patient, but only in 30% of the cases one can find a donor from within the family. In other cases, you need an external donation, and then the patient needs to go to stem cell public banks and hoping to find compatibility. The standard sources for stem cells are bone marrow, peripheral blood, fatty tissue, the cord, in the umbilical cord, and teeth pulp. And usually it's achieved through an invasive medical procedure. Because of these challenges, science and medicine have looked for a new source which should be renewable. In 2007, it was discovered that menstrual blood is rich in stem cells, and it's simple to collect. It's renewable and available. The ethical barriers are minimum, and they are right for various usages. They multiply and replicate quickly, and they have very low immunogenic issues and also anti-inflammatory features. And the menstrual blood has been used in preclinical studies, and many of them have shown very good prospects. And I developed in my project Celix a kit for collecting menstrual blood as a source for stem cells. At the beginning, the user, once the user comes to a regular visit with the GP, she hears that she can donate her stem cells, and she hears about the Celix kit. And if she's interested, she goes through a general medical exam to see that she's generally healthy. And if she's interested and found eligible, she receives prescription to pick up the kit at the pharmacy. The entire process is free of charge because these stem cells are donated and are used for public health. After the user collects the kit from the pharmacy, when she menstruates, she collects her blood through a cup for 4 hours. Then she takes out the cup, pours the blood into a test tube, and then from the test tube, the blood can be sent later to the lab. It puts it in a refrigeration to make sure that the blood and the cells are ideally preserved, and then calls a messenger, a delivery guy to pick up. The handover needs to be done within 72 hours, and you can repeat the process. Like I said, the blood collection is done through this cup. The cup is a very popular hygienic product that's in the market. It's multi-use, and it's similar to a tampon, but unlike a tampon that absorbs the blood, it collects the blood in liquid form, which is the ideal form to collect stem cells from the menstrual blood. Later, the cup that's included in the kit is a part of the kit that stays with the user after she finishes the process, and she can use it afterwards. Because it's for multiple usage, she can reduce the hygienic waste she produces. And after she finishes using the blood, she transfers it to a test tube and closes it with a cap and shakes it well in order to mix the materials within the cap. As far as the design of the cap and the test tube, in order to maintain the blood and to make sure that it isn't infected, you need to add several materials, but these materials need to be separate until the usage moment comes so that they won't spoil, and in order to extend the shelf life. And in order to resolve, and during the tests I tried which users had to add several materials. I saw that there are more materials, the more stages, there's more room for mistake, and I wanted to reduce the number of these stages. And in order to resolve this, I designed it in such a way that it would include a test tube, and this test tube has the initial material. It comes with a peelable one-off disposable cap, and she opens the kit, pours the blood, and then she has to close the test tube with the cap. That includes antibiotics and other materials, and this design guarantees a long shelf life because they're separated, and also the right execution of the process in a simple and intuitive way. After she finishes collecting the blood, she needs to put it in refrigeration until the delivery guy picks it up. While the test tube is in the home of the user, there's another process that begins, and the stick that was used in an earlier stage for introducing the materials into the blood actually is used for collecting the cells from the blood, and this process happens because they are heavier than the blood, and they have an additional quality that they cling to plastic, and the cells cling to the plastic. And then when it reaches the lab, the test tube, you can open it and wash the cells with special material from the stick, and that actually replaces. This is a suggestion for a new protocol of using it instead of using a centrifuge, which is now used in labs. I reached this solution with the help of Amir Eden, who's a stem cell researcher who's been with me throughout the process. My test tube is not just a technical solution. Actually, it's part of a measure of medical activism, and it shows how every woman, in a very simple way, in a few simple steps, it can change the life of an individual. And it's also another step in breaking the taboo of menstruation. It opens up for a social discussion and presents femininity in a way that's unapologetic. I designed the logo with the inspiration of the shape of the uterus, and the name of the project Celix is made up of the word cell and matrix. And one of the meanings of matrix is uterus, or a place where things are created and evolved, just like the stem cells from the menstruation blood that come from the uterus. Thank you very much. And I'll just show my video.
Tila, 27, helped her mother get cured from diabetes. Shani, 24, didn't know Moshe, the 64 2-year-old, but helped him get over a stroke. Shira, she's 23, helped her cure her 8-year-old brother from Duchenne degenerative disease. Anna, 25, helped her grandfather, 81 years old, be cured from Alzheimer. You have the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a once-a-month opportunity to change your life. Sili. A menstrual blood gathering set for stem cells. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Or. And it was worth waiting. So first of all,
so again, we have Ariel on board, and obviously I mentioned his background. So Ariel, you can just dive ahead with your presentation.
Yeah, sorry everyone for that technical glitch, and I'm sorry I have delayed this. So I get to my presentation. I hope it will work now. This it should be working now. Jonathan? All right. So I will talk about a different area of design that we usually talk about. We usually talk a lot about functionalities as the functional dimension. We talk a lot about the aesthetic dimension, so how products look, and we talk a lot about aesthetic values, but we talk pretty little about how design can become normative. So I will try to disentangle this notion. Normative means something that explicitly or implicitly prescribes ways of acting. So a norm, a law, of course, we understand that it's a norm tells us what to do, what not to do. The religious books are full with rules about what one can do, what one should not do, what one is allowed to do under some circumstances. So these are norms, right? So design has this power as well. So when I talk about design, I talk about design in I'm very lenient in this notion. So it is it involves the very narrow sense of form giving, of documenting, of making specifications, but it also involves a much broader way of understanding design, which is imagining, conceiving, prefiguring new ways of being, new ways of doing, new ways of acting in the world, of knowing, of feeling. So a very simple example for the city I live in, Barcelona, will be the Superblocks project, which is a whole new way of reconceptualizing the public areas in the city. So it's not only about traffic, it's about shopping, it's about meeting, it's about walking, it's about enjoying the surroundings. So of course, this much broader way of understanding design involves the narrower view. So we still will be concerned with designing benches and designing the street graphics and designing traffic signs. Herbert Simon, who's one of the founding fathers of artificial intelligence, he also wrote a lot about design. I mean, from this perspective of artificial intelligence, but he defined way with a phrase that has become a motto. It's very famous about design is concerned with things ought to be. So if we think about it, what you're doing now, all these designs which I saw, they are not for the now, they are for the future, right? So all design occurs in the future, actually. So of course, part starts now with our planning, with our conceiving, with our researching, but it will be about how things are in the future. So we are thinking about the preferred state of affairs that will happen. Well, we hope that it will happen. Of course, we do not control that will happen the way we want it. And I mean, the world is full with examples of things going south and things not going well at all. But what we can say because of this designing for a preferred state of affairs in the future is that design materializes notions of the good and the right. Okay, the difference is that the good refers to goods, things that are valuable in themselves, and the right might be about doing the right thing, might be about things that are good for something else. So if you take an example of this is a urinal located in Schiphol Airport in Estonia. They have a similar one in the male's toilet, and you see a little fly etched on the porcelain, and this little fly has a very simple and specific purpose, which is to prevent spillage, right? So we are not including a sign here that says "Do not spill" or "Keep the floor tidy." The designers here were decided to include this fly for make it fun for people to urinate and avoiding spillage. So this is one way of design can influence us. And some designers in the Netherlands, they created this matrix of different ways in which design through embedded intentionality can influence our behavior, users' behavior, if you will. So we have strong and weak forces. Strong are forces that, as it were, literally grab you, whereas weak are more subtle. And then you have ways of influencing that are very obvious, apparent, and you have ways of influencing that are much more hidden and subjacent. So we have decision, coercion, seduction, and persuasion. And it's not a black and white thing. We can have elements of decision in a mainly coercive project, or elements of seduction in a mainly decisive project, for example. So we'll illustrate this with examples. So deciding is about deciding for the user. So you as a designer or as a person in charge of the design, you decide that the user will do or not do some things. You decide what they will see. You decide where they will click. And one way of doing this is when you search for a word on Google, from the billions and billions of possible results, you get like a couple, right? And we know that people will click on the first two or first three results on the list only. Another way of deciding will be physical. So it's not digital, but physical. So this is Buenos Aires, and the mayor decided that people should not skateboard in this area, or people should not sleep rough in this area. People should not plant tents. The unhoused should not plant tents on this area to sleep rough and avoid the rain. So they also decided that we would not do barbecues here, right? So by placing these spikes here, all these decisions were made for preventing people from doing things. And a very notable example of horrible design, callous design, will be these benches against the homeless, against the unhoused, that prevent people from sleeping rough, but also prevent people from being together in a closer way. Similarly, we find, for example, recycling bins, and this is in the UK. We find little bins for household waste, bigger bins for recycling, and normal or intermediate bins for food waste, right? So the city planners here, the city council has decided that we need to recycle more than we throw away in household waste, which might be desirable, okay? So this way of designing is, my point here is not whether it's good or not. In this case, you might argue it's a good thing. My point is how design influences us. Then you have coercion, which will be the strongest way in which you physically force people to do some behaviors, right? You physically make it very difficult for somebody to free ride, and you have to pay for the ticket. Of course, if you go to Berlin, for example, which is a trust-based system, this is not, you don't have to pass through turnstiles. You just pay your ticket mostly, and then you walk into the subway. This is in Barcelona again. But you have in shopping centers more psychological ways of coercing you into not stealing, which is perhaps a good thing to do. Of course, you could defend stealing food, but stealing makeup will be perhaps, I'm not sure, a less defensible thing to do. So in this way, they are coercing you by telling you, we are watching you, and all products are protected, and if you cross them without having paid for them, an alarm will go off, and then you will be shamed, right? And then we have persuasion, which is, again, softer than coercion and decision. And this is a project in the UK, again, for consuming less electricity. So this is about illustrating with chalk the daily energy consumption of a particular street and comparing it to the city average, in this case, Brighton. But we, in our electricity bills, we get similar persuasion techniques, in that by showing you that you are spending more energy than last year or more energy than your neighbors, this persuades you into spending less. And then we have seduction. And seduction is making it fun, like all these about playability and fun, and the game theory it's included in designs. So it makes it fun to recycle bottles. And then we have some problems with these techniques. And of course, you could say when it's for the good, it does so great, but sometimes these techniques are operationalized for not the user's benefit or not the common good, but for a company's benefit only. So autoplay, the autoplay feature in Netflix or YouTube will make you watch many more videos than you initially wanted to, right? So in a way, this is removing some agency, some control from your own about your own behavior, right? So you start watching conspiracy videos, and then after an hour and a half, you end up watching the most horrible Nazi videos that you could ever imagine. The point to keep in mind here is that this is a way of demonstrating the falsehood of the neutrality of technology, because design always seeks to influence behavior in a particular way. And that makes it already from the start a non-neutral artifact. So because the designers and the team working and the company paying for the product is influencing the design in a particular way to achieve some particular goals. So because of that, design is never neutral, and you students especially have to be very conscious of your designs because of this. So this will place new challenges upon you. So even the size of a spoon will limit the amount of food you can take to your mouth, right? And this is, of course, obeying social conventions. We agree on that, but it is influencing your behavior very clearly. These horrible benches are callous, are absolutely unjust examples of injustice in the cities for that we should not only actively fight against, but be conscious of when we get briefs to do these type of things. And this is what makes design ethically relevant. One of the things that makes design ethically relevant. Then we have all the secondary effects, the unintended effects, the unexpected effects, and there's many more to ethics in design than this. But only just being conscious about its normative dimension, only by being conscious that what you do will influence people towards some particular goals that you have or your company has, is already a way of doing ethics. So when you are asked to do a dark pattern, for example, to manipulate users to buy a product they might not need, but it might increase the revenue or the bottom line, then you gotta ask yourself, okay, is this, am I really respecting the user's autonomy here with my design? So I wanna thank you for your attention, and I wanna say sorry again. I wanna congratulate the students before. They had great projects, and I will linger on.
Thank you, Ariel. The wait was worth it. As usual, your lecture was very, very interesting and presented some, I would say, provocative angles to design. We still have just a few minutes for Q&A before our key session. So I'll just ask one question on my part. And after hearing two presentations, one dealing with the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community in Israel and the second one in Uganda, would you say that we can identify perhaps, let's say, social or cultural influences on design ethics, or do you think that design ethics is global or kind of general in its nature?
Okay, that's $1 million questions about ethics in itself, right? So what I believe is that we can have some universal principles, but these principles will not be concrete. So we could say that we should, for example, promote people's capabilities. So that will be something that I think you could say, and it will say, if you justify it well, it will be valid for all communities all over the world, because it's about seeing life in general, right? So we could also relate this to animals and to nature. So then if you say, okay, I'm gonna focus on promoting people's capabilities. Capabilities are your actual effective, real freedoms, the freedoms that you have for doing things, for being, for learning, for feeling safe, not the just theoretical possibilities. So if you have a bike, but if the traffic in your city is extremely dangerous, then there's not much use to that bike. So you need bike path as well, and you need safety in traffic. So the way of promoting capabilities, that will be a good, promoting capability will be a good objective or goal for design. However, as a researcher, you will need to find out what capabilities are worth promoting and what capabilities the community wanted to have promoted. So we have the experience of more than 20 years in social design and in design for the developing world, where we see like terrible projects that do not work, and do not work not only because technically or don't work, because they don't work because they don't take into consideration the local context. So you take, for example, the one laptop per child project that was very famously made by MIT like 20 years ago to bring notebooks to the poor, right? So that was failed in most countries, and it failed miserably because, for example, it didn't address one of the issues that the first student did address, which was training. So you need to train the people who will be working with those computers, teachers and students, etc. And for the computer to work, you needed a high degree of literacy, which was the goal of the project already. So if in Uruguay, it worked pretty well because in Uruguay has no literacy. Is something going on here? Okay, so I lost you here. So that the universality will be, for example, in looking for what capabilities are worth promoting, but you need to engage local communities, you need to co-design, you need to adopt a role other than being somebody who knows it all and wants people in Kenya to live in the way you live in Tel Aviv or in Barcelona.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was really a key kind of arranging your statement in a framework. So again, thank you very much to Ariel and to both our graduates, Hadar and Plia. Unfortunately, we ran out of time for Q&A, but if anyone wants to contact Ariel, you can ask me for his email or just Google him up. Check out his publications and work. He's doing really an excellent job in the discipline. So thank you again. And we'll...
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. And we'll start in 4 minutes our keynote lecture. So come back in 10 to 12 and we'll start in a few minutes.